Welcome back to Decoding Wisdom, guys. Today's a bit of a milestone. We're 10 weeks deep, 10 episodes in. And I thought instead of, sharing another episode on something, on the next insight, why not pause and look back? Think of it like a checkpoint, a reflection, and a recalibration, so to say. And what I'm going to be doing this week is I'm going to be sharing 10 powerful lessons I've picked over the last 10 weeks. And I'll do this every 10 weeks, just kind of like a retrospect. Because I think with so much content that's being created and that I'm creating as well, I want to keep track of it somehow in a way and have a mechanism to capture it as well. So I think these retrospects will really help, not just me, but hopefully you as well. And these lessons are not just going to be from the podcast, but from everyday life. It could be, a conversation I had with a mate. It could be books I've read, certain lessons from it. It could be from YouTube when I just go spiraling into YouTube. It could be epiphanies from my head, in my head, having breakthroughs, and literally everything in between as well. So some of these lessons are going to be mine. Some of them come from incredible guests that we've had on the show. And just on guests, we've already had 2. And, I'm lining up a few more for the next couple of months. Hopefully they come to fruition. Going to manifest that. But all these lessons, all of them are going to be real, raw, and hopefully ridiculously useful to you as well. So let's get straight into it. The first lesson that I've learned in the past 10 weeks is just take the leap of faith. My first episode was called Start Before You're Ready. And that's one of the biggest learnings still. 10 weeks ago, this podcast didn't exist. I didn't have a name, a format, or even a logo. And I remember pacing around my apartment thinking, is this even going to work? Or how's it going to be? How am I going to be as a host? But I just took the leap. And now 10 episodes later, I know it's still a fetus, so to say, the podcast, but it's still very, very early days. But at least this thing has legs now. And not because I had it all figured out, but because I just started anyway. So momentum doesn't begin with clarity, it begins with movement. So start scared, start messy, just start. Because the person you become after starting is very different from the one who was just thinking about it. Make sense? I hope it does. All right, the second one. I came up with this theory of the why am I not enough dilemma. And this is something I've been thinking about a lot over the last few weeks. Think about this. We live in a world that constantly pushes us to optimize, to be fitter, richer, more productive, be a high performer all the time, which I'm a fan of. And on the surface, that's great. And growth is definitely beautiful. But I've found that if you're not careful, that pursuit can come from a place of lack. And you start chasing improvement, not because you want to evolve, but because you feel you're never enough as you are. And I've had moments like that over the last 10 weeks where all the progress just seems like pressure. It becomes pressure. And I definitely understand that pressure is a privilege, right? So it's interesting to see how your mind can just slip away into these thoughts. So then the question is, can you strive while accepting who you are right now? Are you comfortable in your own skin being who you are and still do well? That right there, I think, is real mastery. So you've got to grow from love, not from the lack of it. Right? Okay. Moving on to lesson number 3. It's all about perception. Okay? Before recording almost every podcast, literally every episode, I still get butterflies. An empty pit in my stomach. My palms sweat, my heart races, and for a while, I used to think it was anxiety. But then I realized that my body wasn't panicking, it was preparing, and I started having this perspective shift, which got me thinking about what's the difference between nervousness and excitement. And I sort of went down that rabbit hole. And I came across Simon Sinek's work. He's a, profound author, great researcher. And I came across some of his stuff on nervousness, on nerves versus excitement. And then his conclusion was that nerves and excitement are the same physiological state. And I was like, what? But when you think of it, it is, right? Because if I am about to record this podcast and I'm feeling pretty, someone asks me, how you feeling? I'll be like, oh, pretty nervous, man. Yeah, you know, and they'll be like, okay, what do you feel internally? I'm like, oh yeah, my heart's racing, feeling a little bit anxious, my, palms are sweaty. Okay, great. But then when I used to play cricket, um, say, at a decent level as well, I remember people used to ask me, how you feeling? And I used to be like, yeah, super excited. And they're like, okay, how do you actually feel, like symptoms wise? I'm like, yeah, my heart's racing, feeling a bit sweaty, same thing. So it mirrored everything that you would feel when you're nervous. But the only thing that made one thing scary, or yeah, I would say scary, and the other thing thrilling, is a story I attached to it. And so now before I record, I literally say out loud, I'm excited, man. I'm ready for this. And everything shifts. So for all you blokes out there, think about going to a bar, right? You see a beautiful girl, but you're nervous to approach her. View that nervousness as excitement. Because the thing is, it's just positive reinforcement at the end of the day. And I'm actually going to try it, hopefully. But yeah, I'm just curious to see what happens. But I've already tried this approach with my mates, like when we are, doing client meetings, etc. And it's really helped me at work. So it might for you as well. So the key takeaway here is that if you change the label, it changes the experience. It's all about perception, right? Okay. The fourth one, and this one comes from my conversation with Dustin Garden in episode 9, and I'm going to link all the episodes I referred to in this episode down in the bio, so go check it out. And the episode with Dustin, was a phenomenal episode. I've known him for so long, but I didn't know he had so much wisdom in between his ears. So yeah, definitely go check it out. But what he said one thing in particular that really stuck with me, and he said, nothing has meaning unless you choose to give it one. And at first it sounds very abstract, but when you sit with it for a while, it's actually incredibly powerful. So think about your failures, your challenges, your setbacks, right? They aren't inherently good or bad. They're just blank slates. We are the ones who give them weight. So you and I, right? We decide if something breaks us, builds us. And that means that we hold the power to rewrite the story in real time. So the moral is that you're not just the character in your life. You're the narrator too. What a lesson. What a lesson. Cheers, Dustin, if you're listening to this. Holy cow. Okay. Lesson number, what are we on? 4, 5. 5 now. Lesson 5. Money does buy happiness if you do it right. So this one comes from my chat with Anthony Sorella, who was also the first guest on Decoding Wisdom, and that's episode 7. Again, I'll link it in the bio. Go check it out. And Anthony has, I think he's like 28 right now. Jeez, he's been through quite a bit in his life, but really happy for him to see him doing well. And I just hope he keeps killing it. But he has a podcast called Money Buys Happiness. And so I asked him the question, does money buy happiness? And he told me money absolutely does buy happiness and plays a role as well. But it's a two-pronged approach. I was like, what do you mean by two-pronged? And he said, it depends on how you make your money. And when you spend your money, what do you spend it on? Is it meaningful or not? I was like, okay. And I've been reflecting on this ever since. And here's what I've come to believe. If you make money doing something that drains you, no amount will feel fulfilling. I guess that's why a lot of people in corporate always chase that promotion, where they're just never happy with what they have. Maybe not just corporate, maybe I'm just butchering that. Maybe even entrepreneurs maybe might go through that. And the second thing I've come to believe is that if you spend the money you earn on things that don't align with your values, it becomes noise at the end of the day. But when you earn in alignment and spend your money on freedom, experiences, or people you love, then it hits very differently. So I wouldn't view money as a villain or even the savior. I think it's an amplifier, and it multiplies with, it multiplies what already exists within you or inside you. So the lesson with this is that you got to earn with purpose, spend with intention, and that, I think, is real wealth. Again, earn with purpose, spend with intention. That's real wealth. All right, I think we're halfway through now. Hope you guys are doing all right to this point. Take a quick swig of water. All right, lesson number 6, invest in yourself. That's the best ROI you'll ever get. I think I put a reel out about this as well. And this one also comes from my chat with Anthony. And I think he said something like, you'll be shocked how many people are quick to invest in others and not in themselves. And it's so true. And I think the example he gave is that if he told 100 people that there's a stock that's about to hit 300% and there's a 20% chance that it might actually happen, most people would throw their savings into it, or more than half of them would at least do it. But if he told the same 100 people to start their own business idea that they've been sitting on for years, to finally get out of that corporate rat race, I guess, or finally create the content that they're thinking about, or have been thinking about for a while, 99% of them would say no. Why? Because investing in yourself feels riskier, I feel. And the reason is because there's no one to blame if it doesn't work but yourself, and there's no stability, which I understand. But then here's the truth though. Look at it from a systems map point of view, like an eagle eye point of view. The most undervalued asset in your life is you. So every skill you build, every rep you put in, every single fear you overcome, that's compound interest. Now, how many of us have gone to business school and learned the power of compound interest? And you wouldn't even have had to go to business school to learn this. Instagram's like social media is all about it as well. Compound interest. You could do it on you first, right? So you are the only stock worth betting your entire future on. And it's such a simple concept, but it's just astounding how people don't back themselves. And it really gets me going, because you have no idea what you're capable of. I have no idea what I'm capable of, and I'm trying to figure it out, I guess. But it's scary. It's nervous. You get super nervous, but you just go with it, right? Back yourself. Give yourself a shot, not someone else, right? Okay. Got a bit passionate there, didn't I? Right. Lesson number 7. This is a quote from Naval Ravikant, and it's burned into my brain right now. It's from his book. Actually, no, not from his book. This one's from his episode with Chris Williamson. Oh, what an episode. I highly recommend you guys check it out. But he says, life is a mystery going forward and a science looking back. And I was like, ooh, bloke's onto something here. And, you rarely know what you're doing while you're in the midst of it. You doubt it, you question it, you overthink it. But later, when you look back, it all connects. It all makes sense to you. So every failure, every detour, every no you've had has a role. It plays a role. You just couldn't see it at the time. So if you feel like you're walking through a fog right now, my advice and Naval's advice, just keep walking, right? If you go, and I think Winston Churchill also said something during World War II. He's like, if you're going through hell already, get through it. Just may as well go through all of it. So don't expect perfect clarity in the present. The dots only connect in hindsight. That's the takeaway right there. And lesson number 8 is another gem from Naval, sorry. And it pairs beautifully with the last one. is that the ironic tragedy of life is that it has to be lived forwards, but only makes sense in reverse. Actually, no, this wasn't Naval. This was Chris Williamson when he had Matthew McConaughey on. Sorry, my bad. Look at me making mistakes and learning from it. And then I think McConaughey was like the ironic tragedy or something. Yeah, sorry, this was Chris Williamson, not Naval. But again, sometimes we try to make meaning out of moments too soon, right? We ask, why did this happen? What does this mean? And maybe we are not supposed to know it yet. Maybe part of the human experience is trusting that meaning will arrive later, that the chapter you're in today will explain itself in a future paragraph. Bit poetic, that one. I didn't know I had that, but it sounded pretty good. What did I say? I forgot now. But the takeaway, what I'm trying to get to is stop rushing to explain everything. Some answers come along after the moment has passed. So be patient. It'll all work out. Okay. This one, lesson 9, is definitely from Naval. As you can tell, I'm a huge Naval fan and Chris Williamson fan as well. But this is straight from his book, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. The concept is that happiness requires peace. Okay. And I used to think that happiness meant being positive 24/7, right? Having high energy, smiling, laughing around. But I've come to realize something through reading the book, Naval's book as well, is that happiness is actually peace. So a truly happy person isn't someone who's never sad or stressed. It's someone who interprets the world in a way that protects their inner peace or the stillness that they have, right? So if they bounce back, they don't spiral, and they see chaos and choose calm instead. So I'm learning to ask myself now, not the fact that am I happy, but am I at peace? Because happiness without peace is shallow. But peace is durable in itself. So what I'm trying to get to, I guess, is protect your peace like it's your most valuable possession. Sorry. So protect your peace like it's your most valuable possession, because it is. Yeah. I never thought about that, but it's peace that we are chasing after all, not necessarily happiness. Anyway, with that, I think we're into our last one. The last lesson, most important lesson I've learned in the past 10 weeks. It's don't be your own worst enemy. And this one's personal because over the past 10 weeks, balancing, podcasting with my corporate job, I'm a management consultant. So it gets pretty busy sometimes. And it has really pushed me to the edge, balancing the two, both mentally and physically. And there were nights where I'd come home around, 11 p.m., midnight, and literally pass out instantly. But when I'd wake up the next morning, I'd be fuming at myself, fuming that I didn't stay up and work on the podcast, fuming that I wasn't doing enough. And then it just, the spiral began. My inner voice was like, you're falling behind. No one cares. What's the point? What's the point in doing this? But then a close friend called me out of the blue the other day, and he said, mate, you're crushing it. I've seen how far you've come in the 10 weeks. Like each episode, I'm seeing progress. And I'm super proud of you. And I just paused because he was being kinder to me than I was to myself. And after reflecting on that call, it clicked that we are often giving advice to our younger self, right? So think about what you would tell yourself 10 years ago, the version that you were 10 years ago, when we should be giving that very same advice to who we are right now. And I just thought about it. I was like, it's very important to to be fearless and go out and chase your dreams, whatever they might be. But at the same time, be kind to yourself, especially to yourself. You got to be kind in general as well, right? So yeah, that one's a bit of a deep one, but yeah, that one really got me good as well. Right, so that's me done waffling for another week. If any of these lessons have resonated with you, brilliant, right? If they didn't, well, maybe give it another listen when you're in a better mood. Feel free to share this with a friend who's, currently is being too dramatic about their life or just needs a polite kick in their mindset. And as always, you know what to do. Subscribe, follow, or ignore entirely. No stress. I'll still be here next week, decoding more as you can tell, I can't even speak. I'll still be here next week, decoding more wisdom, while silently questioning all of my life's choices. Until then, cheers for listening. Ciao.